Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, to all my graceful audience, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Rahmat Empowerment Wala, striving to achieve self sustainability for me and for the people alike. I'm host of this interview session, podcast session named Empowering Minds. The objective of this session is to call upon such prestigious and honorable guests who haven't explored their own mindsets but are trying to empower other minds too. So, to serve the purpose, we have with us Nigel Stonham tonight, and we'll try to extract as much knowledge as we could from him, and we'll try to, you know, uh, uh, catch this situation with both hands and try to acquire as much knowledge as we could from him. So welcome, Nigel, to Empowering Minds.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you today?
A little bit cold here in Mödling, just south of Vienna in Austria, but fantastic, feeling fantastic, and having a wonderful first Advent Sunday on the 3rd of December here.
Great to know that, glad to know that. And thank you for your time you have given me, and thank you for your presence you have shown in Empowering Minds. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
I,
So
I saw one of your earlier talks and I was very impressed. I
thank you
think you
so much.
interviewed someone that I passed towards you.
Thank you so much for your appreciation. Let's see how this session goes. First of all, I would like you to introduce yourself so me and my audience will get to know you a bit better.
Excellent, thank you. I'm an Englishman in Austria. I was born in Sussex in southeast England, halfway in between London and Brighton, roughly, and grew up in a safe and secure household where I was educated through a variety of means in the family. And my mother took us to church. I was brought up in the Church of England school, primary school and secondary school. And in the village church, we had Sunday school and stuff. And in the Cub Scouts, I was taken along to the Cubs when I was about 6. And then I grew up through the whole of my time in Copthorne in Sussex, in the first Copthorne Scout group, doing a variety of activities through the Cubs and then the Scouts and then the Venture Scouts. I worked for Sainsbury's for a while in a supermarket when I was about 17, and that was good because I met people. I enjoyed my school life, and I learned stuff at home, in the church, in the Scouts, and at school. So I had a rounded education, consider myself very fortunate. Then I went off to university in Wales and studied economics and business. And I felt that in order to get a job afterwards, I might do better to have some industrial experience, some working experience as part of my degree, rather than just doing 3 years. And also I wanted to go off and travel when I'd finished university. So that was partly because I read a book. I picked up a book about Everest. I was doing some rock climbing and I picked up a book about Everest, and I liked the story from Chris Bonington about the walk-in to Everest Base Camp, and I decided I wanted to do that when I finished university. And therefore I took a year out, and I was in Australia, and I was working for IBM in the UK for my 3rd year when they launched the personal computer in the UK. It was very interesting because everyone was very excited. It was new times. The personal computers, they talked about it being the toy shop compared to IBM mainframes, and it was exciting. There was always a lot to do and new stuff. It was very interesting. Went back to university, went off to around Europe for 6 weeks, I think, when I finished university. Then went out to India for 2 weeks and Nepal for 2 months, and then another 2 weeks in India. Then I came back to the UK and started working at IBM, and I worked at IBM for 11 years. and then worked for a couple of other large American corporations, Oracle and Computer Associates, and moved to Austria in 1999 with 100 words of German. I said that when I was on the plane emigrating to Austria, I counted from 1 to 100. I said, oh, I've arrived with 100 words of German. Austria is a German language country, and my experience here has been wonderful because being English, lots of people, almost everyone wanted to speak English with me rather than me struggling to speak German. So it was quite challenging to learn German, which I learned very slowly. And I was working to start with for Computer Associates in a software company, and I was education manager for Austria and Eastern Europe, and I was traveling around looking after partner and customer education in Eastern Europe, which is very interesting. So I saw new places in a new way there. When I got here, I launched something that I had seen in the UK. I'd been to a couple of events in London, which were very interesting. It was called First Tuesday, and it was some people who were bringing together ideas and money. So people, when they came to the event, they had badges on, a green dot for ideas and a red dot for money. And then they introduced yellow dots, I think, as well for services. And I started this in September 1999 in Vienna. At the same time that 16, I think, other cities started, it grew to 110 cities. So I was involved with the startup arena from early stage here. And I saw lots of venues and met lots of people that mostly were speaking English. I was explaining to my son, I was asking my son, who's now 24 today, whether I had talked to him about my foundational experience with the internet when I saw what the internet can do. I had two experiences, one day in the UK, where someone showed me a picture of a lady in a wedding dress that had been put on the internet in the husband's back bedroom, and all of a sudden 40,000 people or so at the time could see this on the internet. And at the same time, one of my customers was a DJ in part-time and had a website. So on one day I saw two examples of the internet, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is a fantastic informational exchange where we can share information to everyone who has access. And I kind of resolved at that point to support internet access, where what I say now is that my intention is that everyone has the same internet access as you and I, that we can sit here and chat to each other with a good internet connection. We can, at no marginal cost. So the marginal cost of me accessing the internet is I have a machine and I have the internet on a fixed monthly rate. I can effectively gather information and have connections like this with people around the world 24 hours a day, although I do need to sleep a little bit, although some of my friends question when I sleep. And that's amazing. And I'm talking to a lot of people who do not have the same internet access, very smart people who are looking to become more empowered. And the world is talking about empowering people, and the world is also talking about internet as being a great thing which will help to empower people. And I'm kind of striving daily to move things forward.
Great, wonderful introduction, Nigel. And you have covered, I guess, all of the aspects of your life and your journey till now. Uh, I'll ask you, did you succeed in climbing Everest or you haven't succeeded yet?
I have no inclination of climbing Everest. What I did succeed, I had a goal which was clear, and I achieved my goal with some stress. My goal was to go to Everest Base Camp, and I did that, which is 19,000 away. I was actually very ill from early on. And while I was walking up, people were going and they were walking up like 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet a day and then going off and playing football in the afternoon. It was as much as I could do to walk the 2,000 feet up and then lie flat on my back until the next day walking on again. So I was but it was a very enriching learning experience. One of the key things that I talk about was that we were like 4 weeks or something walking in the clouds. We hadn't had much. We had the clouds and we were walking, or maybe it wasn't for 4 weeks, but then we walked out of the clouds, but above the clouds. So we literally walked up the path and we were looking down on the clouds. We were also looking down on the airplane that was flying into Lukla. It was just an amazing experience. One day we got up in the morning and we walked that way and then that way. And at the end of the day, we were 100 meters up the valley, but we'd spent the whole day walking up this side valley and along, and it was just amazing. I encourage. It was foundational. I stood up in a town in the Czech Republic some years later, 2002-ish, talking about creativity. In my MBA, one of the things I studied was creativity. And I came away, I almost didn't do the course creative management because I felt that it was a soft option and things like finance and strategy would be more MBA-ish. But I did this course creative management. I came away saying everyone in the world should do creativity, and instantly the world would become a better place, a happier place. I got into happiness later, but it would be a better place. Better is a judgmental word, so I try and hesitate to use judgmental words, but because my view of better may not be someone else's. But I would like everyone to study creativity, along with other things that I've been fortunate enough to study in later life, not in my formal education, but in later life. Project management. I did a 10-week course on project management. I would love everyone to do the majority of the first 2 weeks of that, which is a summary of the project management handbook. I would love people to study sales. I spent a lot of time being supported by IBM to learn selling. Theoretically, I learned selling, but I was crap at it. And it was many years before I gained the self-confidence in my ability to actually talk to people as a human being. I felt a lot of pressure when I was working at IBM that I was representing IBM, which gave me a huge pressure, which I couldn't handle very well. Now, in the later years, I am representing my own personal brand, which is Nigel Stonham, which I protect very carefully and strongly, and it's me. So I don't have to answer to anyone else on that. And it means I can move very swiftly. I can do things. I don't have to have discussions with anyone else about what I do. I went on a lean startup weekend many years ago, 2012 in Munich, because two friends had talked about this thing, and I went on a weekend, and I arrived on the first Friday evening. We sat around and had a group discussion, and they were talking about this book. And I said, well, what's the book? And it was The Lean Startup by Eric someone, I think. And I said, oh, and that's what the weekend's about. But I had arrived because two people had recommended the concept to me, and I went along to see what was going on. And that was interestingly the first time. I had a couple of other things there. I sent someone some messages early because I tend to wake up early, and Sunday morning someone, oh, you woke me up early in the morning because my phone rang when you sent me a message. And I said, well, switch your phone off if you're asleep. Don't be interrupted. And then we exchanged some business contacts or some contacts at one point. Someone gave me a card, and I said, oh, I said in a throwaway comment, I said, oh, you can Google me. So they Googled me, 2012. This was the first time I'd done it. And I got 9 out of 10 hits on Google. And that was because I said, Google me Nigel Vienna, because there aren't that many Nigels in Vienna. But Nigel Kennedy had recently visited, and he got the 10th position. I think it was first position, and I got the other 9. And he's a world famous violinist with spiky hair, a lot more hair than me. And he'd just been to Vienna. So, and then I do that as a throwaway. I was at a meeting recently. It was interesting because I asked for some cards, and some people said, oh, here's my QR code. You can scan that. And I said, oh, this is very interesting. We've gone from having names and exchanging names to exchanging business cards. And now we're exchanging QR codes. And I'd rather actually know who you are. And someone else previously offered me an electronic visiting card. They held up their thing and said, "Oh, you can connect your Bluetooth device to this." And I said, "Oh, you can connect your device to me." I said, "Here's my device. It's me."
Excellent, excellent, Nigel. Wonderful conversation you had with that man. Okay, tell me, your profile says education is your greatest passion. So, could you shed
Yes.
some light on that? How do
Yes.
you find that passion?
When I left the UK, I had dreamed up a Disney type of job title that I would like to have, and that was Head of Inspiration and Motivation for the UK education system. Meaning that as a person who at the time was married to a head of modern languages and seeing the challenges that they go through and the joy that they had in their role as well, I felt that offering inspiration to people doing a good job, and I'd seen other people doing this as well. There was an aunt of mine who was working with disabled children, and a friend as well, a very good friend who was working with them. And I said, I support what they're doing, but I could not do that myself as a job, 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week. But I want to do what I can to support them. So I wanted to support teachers who I felt at the time were being given administrative tasks and measurement tasks, which actually took them away from the passion of teaching young people, teaching other people something that they were good and passionate about, which was frustrating in the home situation. I saw my ex-wife preparing lessons every evening and marking books every evening. I thought, well, this is crazy. Why is everyone doing the same preparation? Can we not streamline that by having one person prepare, the world's best teacher preparing something, and then everyone else walks into a lesson and the kids start looking at a video of the best thing, and then the teacher facilitates it. So I have this facilitative approach to teaching. And that also, I had arrived at that with being a chief exec, the concept of being a chief executive and getting £1 million a year in a salary. I said, could I do that? I said, well, I couldn't necessarily do that because of the responsibility. I wouldn't want that. And my approach was, well, I'd employ someone for 970,000 a year, 930,000 a year, 940,000, sorry, to do the job, the work, and I would be happy on a 60,000 a year. But to have the contacts and the network and the position to some extent, but not the responsibility and the effort of doing everything, which is which does drive a lot of people to burnout, to exhaustion, to early graves, and to illogical, strange decisions that actually, if they thought about it in the cold light of day, they probably wouldn't do some of the stuff that they do these days. I was just talking to my friend here who's kindly lent me his hall to do this call because I was out for brunch this morning in the town that I lived in for 10 years, just south of Vienna. And then I was either going to go back to do this at home, but then I'm spontaneously guided, I say, and I wake up in the morning and do the most fun thing that comes to me or that I'm gifted. And popping to see my friend here came to me on the way home, and I'm drinking tea. I'm impressed. I have impressed him with my rate of drinking tea. As a Brit, I am very capable of drinking tea and coffee, which keeps me going. I was talking to the people at brunch. I say, excuse me, I have two states. I'm either on or off, and I'm on at the moment. Someone did actually ask me, are you in a state of on or off at the moment? Because she said, if you're off at the moment, I would hate to see you when you're on. And I said, yeah, it's 3:15 in the afternoon here on Sunday, and I strangely got up at 12:30 at night this morning. I tend to sleep when I'm tired and wake up when I wake up, and the early morning, middle of the night calm and being able to access and think and come up with creative stream of ideas and progress things with the computer, and generally with people who are awake at the same time at me in various parts of the world, including a new friend here in Vienna at 3 o'clock in the morning who was, oh, what are you doing awake? and he was awake for another hour. I have frequent occasions where I'm starting my day at the same time other people are finishing theirs. And in today's world, it doesn't really matter. One of the things I talked about sales, I talked about project management, creativity, also goals. Goals are very important. Like I said, I set a goal to go to Everest Base Camp and I did it. I tend to, with my coaching, which I'm offering, which is in 3 levels. One is happiness coaching since 2006, strategy mentoring based on my MBA and my experience there, and English training, all of which I've had experience with in different levels. I have a simple 1-page form which says, what is your goal? Do you want to be better at English from level A1 to B2 by so-and-so? Do you want to increase your business from 100 to 130? Or do you want to, the third one be, increase your happiness from a level 7 to a level 8? And then it's, once you clarify that goal, I then ask people what they're doing towards achieving their goal and help them to clarify and then work on their objectives and come up with some strategies. And then largely, as people have been saying for eons, for a long time, once you do, the answer is in us. Basically, I believe that the answer is in us. And if we can coax that answer out from people by getting them to elucidate and talk about what it is they're trying to do, then they find the answer themselves. So my coaching is very light touch, ask some provocative questions, make people think, and then let them find the answer themselves. With my happiness, for example, I'm interested in people of 7 above going up a level. I can refer out people who say they're 2 out of 10 happy. Unless it's my son, who, when I asked him, how happy would you say you are on a scale of 1 to 10? He said 2. And I said, what? And he said, hang on, which end's good? I said 10. He said, oh, 8 then. So I can refer out people who say things like I'm 2.25 to professionals, because I'm not a professional. I'm selling happiness while it's still legal, because I have a belief that at some point they will make it illegal, because if we're all happy like you and I, we will be healthier and fitter, and we won't be needing some of the stuff that people are very cleverly working to sell us.
True, true. Excellent, Nigel. Excellent. You're a great conversation.
I used to work in sales, and we used to go to quarterly sales meetings. And in one sales meeting, I was saying to myself, how am I going to get through this all-day sales meeting? And I said, what I'm looking for from this day is 2 minutes of value that I'm still talking about 20 years later. And I think that sales meeting, a guy who used to be on television when I was a kid, he was on, he said, we have the intelligence within ourselves as human beings to solve any challenge that comes to us, be it global warming or flooding or whatever. And this was one of my 2 minutes. And so I've been collecting 2-minute worthy things that I'm still talking about 20 years. And this is for over 20 years now. So basically I can talk non-stop for 3 weeks about stuff that I consider important enough to be talking about 20 years later. So I talk about talking for England, which is something that we talked about before. So if we're going for 25 minutes, I've talked for 23 minutes and 50 seconds now. So
No problem. We can extend to 40, 50 minutes. I have lots of time if you have.
people ask me sometimes, how much time have you got? And I say, well, I've got 80 years. How about you?
Great. So I'll ask you another question that you like to bring people together, and your intention is to build one of the best networks of people in the world. So how how did that come to you that you need to bridge, create bridge between the people, and what are your intentions, and what are the benefits of it?
I've had some clear goals for a long time, and I was going to a lot of networking meetings and these startup meetings, and I was organizing other things. And I like to be in charge. We used to go to this sports weekend in England after university with some people, and and we were talking about control freak. And I said, I'm not a control freak. And then a couple of people said, yes, you are. And I thought, okay, I like to be in control. So I like to organize my meetings where I'm in control. I go to a lot of other people's meetings, but I'm not so happy being an audience participant. But I do learn a lot, and I stay as long as I can. And I was going to these meetings, and I was meeting people. So I was explaining to people what I do. And I found that some people would say, hey, that's really good. What can we do to support you? And some people would say, hey, what are you talking about? And I would try and explain to the people who said, hey, what are you talking about? And I realized that I could spend 20 minutes talking to some people and they would not understand what I was saying, what I was about. And in the same time, I could find 10 more people who would say, what can we do together? So I resolved to connect fast and deep with people so that I could hang out. And I talk about different divisions. I talk about people with open minds and people with closed minds, people with passion and people with not. I was in the university, the Wirtschaftsuni, which is the business university here in Vienna the other day. I was on the campus talking to some students, and we talked about passion. And I asked this 22-year-old what his passion was, and he said, I can't remember what he said, but he said, what sort of people's passions are you interested in? I said, it's passion I'm interested in. And I said, because I had been thinking about this earlier that day, if I asked you, if you had the choice of hanging out with someone with passion or someone without, who would you choose to hang out with?
Of course, with the passionate one.
Generally, people would say, hang out with people with passion. So I hang out with people with passion. And so so it doesn't matter to me what their passion is. I can learn from them because I'm open-minded and keen to learn about anything that's legal, honest, and decent, and some of the other things that aren't, just so I know more about them as well. That it's the passion that attracts me. And with that end, I started a thing called Women with Passion in 2004 in Vienna. And that was an amazing formative experience because I was going to an event called IT Salon pour Elle, a female IT salon meeting once a month. And I asked if I could get up and say a few words. And I said, I'd like to invite you all, kind of IT directors and IT people, females. I'd like to invite you all to an event in 2 weeks' time called Women with Passion. Please come. And at the time, when I said this to a bunch of women for an event 2 weeks later, I had no venue, no topic, no panel, and no audience. But I was recruiting the audience first of all. So I was talking to someone today in Kenya about if you're going to start a business, it helps to know if people want to come to what you're doing. So I threw this out there. And 2 weeks later, I had a panel of 4 esteemed ladies, women with passion, a moderator, and 3 weeks later, had a half-page press coverage in one of the main Austrian newspapers about the event, which was on lifelong, life-wide learning. And so I facilitated and had a great event with about 50 to 70 people in the room, in the cafe. And this is what I was talking about, running a company or support, is by facilitation, by learning, by training, by facilitation. If I was teaching people, I prefer people to study some material and then present to the group, to the students, rather than me preach to them as a teacher, although of course I'm preaching now, but in a different way. So we learn often best by doing stuff. We also make friends by doing stuff. And one of I'm offering different coaching, dream coaching, passion coaching, happiness coaching, language training. And one of the things is, how do we make friends? Well, we make friends by doing stuff with people. And today, the brunch that I went to was organized by a friend that I've known for over 20 years here. Our kids were in kindergarten together, and over the time, and both of his kids were there today, actually. So I was seeing those kids, and it was awesome. But he and I are bonded by doing a lot of stuff once or twice a year. And that's stories to tell and shared experiences, which you don't get by sitting in the cellar playing Nintendo necessarily. You can, of course, and typically whenever I say anything, I reverse it because, of course, you can gain shared experience with other Nintendo people. One of my English students years ago, I said, "What do you do?" And she says, "I'm learning Warcraft." And I said, "Well, that's very interesting. I'm surprised." "Yes, well, my husband plays Warcraft every spare moment, and the only way I can get to talk to him is through a Warcraft screen, and that's why I'm learning Warcraft so I can have a better relationship with my husband." You'll notice that I'm not mentioning any names here at all. I'm trying to avoid any names other than Nigel. And as I said, if I haven't said before, you can Google me. You can find me on Google by typing Nigel Vienna or Mr. Happy Vienna or Nigel Mr. Happy.
Excellent. It has been a great
Happiness,
conversation until now, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
happiness is modeled for me largely on The Good Book. The Good Book being Mr. Happy by a gentleman whose name escapes me at the moment. I've read this so many times, but I can't remember the author. But it's a series of Mr. Men books. Mr. Happy lives in Happy Land. Everyone and everything is happy. He goes out one day and meets Mr. Miserable, who would give anything to be happy, but can't see a way he'd ever be happy. Mr. Happy thinks about this for a while and then invites him back to Happy Land. And soon they're rolling around the floor laughing because he's caught happiness by being around happy things and happy people. So I typically only hang out in happy places as well. I also only eat happy food cooked by people who are happy and cooked with love, and hopefully grown with love as well. That's a movement that we're slowly moving on. And the beauty of Vienna, for me, and Austria, apart from being the home of Sigmund Freud and psychoanalytical coaching, and for lots of people who are struggling with their happiness, it also has a leisure centre 10 miles out of Vienna called Happy Land that has been running for 30 years. So Mr. Happy lives in Austria, 10 miles away from Happy Land. So it's Happy Land is both a spiritual concept, but where I am, it's also a place where I can take people to, and we can experience sport, swimming, ice skating, basketball, tennis, rock climbing in a leisure centre. So it's really a cool place. I have considered myself for a long time to be guided by the universe, and servant leadership is gaining some popularity or more popularity. And I also talk about my master being the universe. So I'm a universal servant and have introduced myself at one point to a finance director as a universal traveler. And the internet gives the possibility to travel without traveling, so to speak. So yes, in the last 24 hours, I was chatting to a Ghanaian who I believed was in Senegal, but is actually in the Gambia. So I started researching the Gambia because he's arrived with no contact. So I thought, well, who can I introduce you to in Gambia? Both people that I already had spoken to and people that I'm researching. And then I'm also talking to you. And this morning, you mentioned putting people together. And one of my new things this morning, because of the guy in the Gambia and because of some other stuff we're doing, I've come up with a new spin, a new event based on some thoughts that have been going on, which was I'm interested to connect by the end of January 43 Africans with 43 Pakistanis in a Zoom meeting on the 22nd of January, which I very quickly put up as an actually event to invite people to. And because I live in Vienna, we actually have a very nice Pakistani restaurant here and some very nice African restaurants. And I'm looking to actually have physical meeting in Vienna with 43 Pakistanis and 43 Africans. So this morning I wrote to my Pakistani friend and said, please, can you tell me how many entrepreneurs and students there are from Pakistan here, so I can invite them to meet 43 Africans. When I launched Vienna Women with Passion, the following year I launched Vienna Hub, which was People with Passion, connecting people with passion across art, commerce, sport, and education, more artistic creativity for business, more business sense for artists, more sport for everyone, and the best damn education we can deliver. And that's why education is my biggest passion, because it cuts across all of those. Oprah Winfrey, I saw a session one day about goals, and she either asked or was asked, what happens to people with big goals when they get close to achieving their goals? Do they fall off the edge? Or when they achieve their goals, do they fall off the edge? And they said, no, they get bigger goals. So when I started increasing my goals, I thought, well, this is interesting. Maybe I'm getting close to achieving some of my goals because I'm setting bigger goals. And I'm connected with some people who have big goals. There's a guy in London who's supporting training of refugees in Africa so that they have a skill that can be sold on things like Canva or one of 5 or 6 other unicorn products, and they can offer services. Obviously, one of your mentors in Pakistan, and the guy in Africa is looking to train 1 million refugees. One of your mentors is looking to train 100 million Pakistanis to enable them and empower them to earn 500 lakhs, $500 or 100,000 lakhs a month, I believe. And I like detail. Whilst I talk jokingly about not being a detailed person, I can actually be incredibly detailed. Like, I will then ask questions, well, how many people have you actually got doing that so far, if you've been doing it for a couple of years? And what's your plan and what are they going to do? And looking through people's LinkedIn profiles, being a Westerner, if Africans or people in your region or country are trying to sell to people in the West, then I believe there has to be an element of symbiosis and acceptability. And I'm trying to encourage people to become more acceptable in a provocative way. So it doesn't always work. What I said to my son this morning about what I saw with the web, I'm actually starting to do some of the things that I've been asking other people to do, which is make a website so you can deliver your information across the internet. And someone last night, in the last 12 hours, actually followed my advice or recommendation and came up with a website, which I reviewed this morning, which is great because I've been doing a few myself, because a website is a good way of, and I always smile when I go to someone's web address and it says nothing here, website under reconstruction. And they're always under reconstruction. It's always a moving feast. So the very basic thing you should have is the information how people can get in touch with you, rather than having a website that doesn't lead anywhere other than frustration for me. I'm a very simple person. In the early days, we had some Java programmers who were writing very complex Java programs, etc., for stuff like housing is one of my interests. And I was looking at housing websites of stuff that's for sale, and I had to fill in 20 different fields to narrow down to what I was looking for. So that took me 2 minutes longer than the attention span I have. And then it said, oh, sorry, nothing found. So I thought, well, that's rubbish. Why don't you show me everything to start with? And then I can decide where to go from there, rather than spending 2 minutes of my life getting somewhere and then saying, sorry, start again. I don't like starting again, unless it's something that I'm happy to start again on. See, balance. Balance coaching was one of the things I started offering. Yeah, balance. Most people are out of balance. No,
Great,
many people are out of balance. Many people in the West are out of balance. You guys are operating on a different internal scale, as are the
excellent.
Africans generally.
True. Okay, so you are an English coach yourself, so I would like to catch the presence of yours. So I like to ask this question: some English learning tips from you of how to become a good fluent speaker of English, as this is my aim to speak a native, like a native speaker, and I practice it a lot. So I would like to ask you this question to give me some tips to speak like a native speaker. How can I achieve that aim?
The mother of my daughter, my daughter is going to be 6 in January, all being well, and her mother learnt English in Austria by listening to Bon Jovi and reading the lyric sheets. Bon Jovi pop music. So listening to music, following the lyrics, watching YouTube stuff. My daughter listens to me talking like this and has done, and she's pretty good at English and German. She's bilingual. And my son is now trilingual because he's learned French as well since the age of 14 in France. So he's a pretty good example. And so listen a lot, practice, overcome the fear of speaking. And that took me a long time here. I kind of remember the day when I started speaking German rather than just listening. I was on a course in about 2004, and I was on a course, and all of a sudden I sod this, I'm going to start talking. And interestingly, I'm different to a lot of people. I'm unique. We're all unique. I'm not special. We're all unique. It seems like my approach is somewhat different, that a lot of people say they can understand more than they can speak. Well, it seems that I can speak more German than I can understand, which is why, a bit like sometimes in English, I talk non-stop in English and German, because I don't want to be interrupted. Because if they say something to me in German, I get lost. So I just, like a politician, I deliver what I want to say. But having said that, I'd like to think maybe I'm more sensitive than some politicians. I actually watch people for body language and signs, and to see whether they're interested in what I'm saying, whether I should change tack. I talk about being a fisherman. I actually throw stuff out when I'm talking to people to see what it is, to see what the hooks are. I throw hooks out to see what's their interest. And one of them was, what's your passion? What's your dream? And sometimes people's eyes glaze over and it looks like they're falling asleep. So I either move on or change the subject or open the window or something and move around. I do have a little story about when I was teaching English once, or I was in charge of an English group, and someone in my lesson fell asleep. Can you believe that? And the person that fell asleep was me. I fell asleep in my own English lesson. I mean, what a nightmare. I was the teacher. Shows how interesting my... Sorry?
How could that happen? You were teaching and you fell asleep.
Yeah. Well, I set them an exercise and they were doing it, and I was so tired and bored I fell asleep.
Okay.
Yeah, one needs activity. And
yeah, sure. So what I got from you, that listening more is the key here to speak the certain language. You have to listen more.
This is a great hook. Thank you. You need to have a certain vocabulary in order to speak a language. They reckon there's a thing called Globe English, which reckons you can get by with 2,000 words to speak English, to be understood. My focus from my language training as a teacher is on fluency and confidence. So when I'm talking to people, I'm encouraging them to speak, usually. And I'm also wanting to, it's on understanding rather than perfection. And one of the things that I started around about 2017 was the idea of getting people who are learning a language to talk together. And it's often easier to talk to a second language English speaker than a native speaker, because they use a more simple language, which is good. So you can gain more confidence. I'm watching my daughter daily. And it's the same with my son. I asked my son a question one day when he was about 6 or 7. I said, Vince, tell me tell me the answer to this. And someone interrupted and said, well, he knows the answer to that. I said, I know he knows the answer. I'm asking him the question to give him the opportunity to practice speaking, because the confidence and having someone to encourage you and motivate you to speak. And a lot of people have a big barrier in actually opening their mouths and talking. I've had that in German here. I mean, one of the most effective and impactful German lessons I had was some years ago, where we had a sheet of paper which had two rolls on it, A, B, A, B, A, B. And we stood up, 20 of us in the room, and we had the sheet of paper, and I went to you and standing there, and I read roll A, you read B, A, B, A, B, A, B. Then we swapped over and read B, A, B, A, B, A, and then we went off and found someone else. So in 20 minutes of talking, 20 minutes of a lesson, we spent 10 minutes speaking and 10 minutes listening, which was one of the most highest level, because normally if you have an hour's lesson, you're lucky to get 1 minute speaking when there's 20 people, 30 people in the room. In Africa, I believe, I've heard people say they have 200 or 300 children in a room. Now, that's a lot. What we're doing now, and one of the things I'm moving to with this thing called Café d'English, which is Deutsch English and German English, is the idea that we can set up a Zoom room with 90 people in it, and we can break them up into 30 breakout rooms of 3 automatically, and then you go off and you speak and I speak and someone listens, and then we change over, and then we have a new group. We automatically put people into new groups and everything. So one of the really positive things that's come out of COVID is seeing how we can use the technology now to get Pakistanis to practice English with African people. And believe me, you both have a long way to go before someone like me can understand you.
Is my English that bad?
No. That was a generalization. I don't really like generalizations, but you in general over there and them over there.
Okay.
But then that said, there's a lot of English people I can't understand either. So
I bet those were most of Scottish.
Yeah, exactly. And also, believe me, 50% of the people that I speak to say they don't understand what I'm saying.
They think you're Irish or what?
No, because my thoughts are too complex and I only give them half an idea, and I'm like here and I think they know everything that I haven't spoken to them about. And yes,
Excellent,
we used to say in England, people are on a different planet, and I'm on planet Nigel.
Excellent, Nigel. There's been very, I really like talking to you, and this session is really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. And 47 and 48 minutes have gone by, and I didn't realize that. I'll like to ask you last question, which is my favorite question, and I ask every guest of mine. What advice would you give to a 25 years younger version of yourself?
Relax.
Okay.
And breathe. It's interesting. I was lying in bed this morning. I think I got up at 12:30, as I said, and then I went back to bed about 5:30 or whatever for 40 minutes or so. And I was lying there and I was breathing. And one of the advices for a 25-year younger is get older, because as you get older, it's more fun. And things come out of my mouth that if someone had said them 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and they did say that, I laughed at them because I thought, well, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. But now stuff like that comes out of my mouth quite happily. And it's because I've got, so for example, people talked about abundance. There's abundance. And I couldn't conceptualize the word abundance until someone or I broke it down into a bun dance. And then it all became clear that the abundance is quite humorous, but it means that there's enough for everyone. It's just we're not sharing it very well. And relax and breathing. So I've met some people who talk about being a breathing coach. And I thought, well, we all breathe. There's nothing special to that. But I was lying in bed this morning saying, well, actually, if you're doing something and you're really pressured, as a lot of people are, if you, as I do on the U-Bahn or in the lift, or if you just shut your eyes and just breathe, yeah, it's like a moment of mindfulness, and it actually shuts off, even for a fraction of a second or a minute. It really shuts you down into self, and the other stuff goes away for a minute, and it's a really relaxing thing, and then you can keep on. And you have to do it what's good for you. People, I'm listening to some meditation tapes when I wake up in the night and trying to get back to sleep, and they talk about breathing, and I actually get into I try to follow their breathe and hold it and then release and whistle when you're doing it. It actually gets me panicking because I can't hold my breath, but then I'm trying to do what someone else is telling me to do, and I don't want to do that. If I've now internalized it to doing what I want to do and what I feel comfortable with, because I experience different things, then I actually like this moment. It's a mindful. Other people talk about mindful moments and they clang bells and stuff like that and shut their eyes, and we have to do it in our own way. So you have to find your way by doing lots of. One of my mentors talked about. He's got a book that I was advised and I read, and it said, "You'll never be happy until you've found and following your passion and working in a job that is your passion. How do you find your passion? You do lots of things until you find what it is. And you won't like everything that you do, but providing you appreciate that stuff you're doing that you don't like is a part of your journey to get to what you do like."
Excellent, amazing. Thank you so much, Nigel, for this wonderful advice, and thank you so much for your time and your presence you have shown. I really enjoyed it. I hope you have enjoyed it too. What are your feedbacks?
I'm totally open and transparent, and I say that I am one of the luckiest and happiest people on the planet, in my view. So I'm in my bubble, and my bubble appears to be happier than a lot of other people's, and I appreciate and realize that I live in a bubble. A lot of people, other people, seem to live in a bubble but don't realize it, and that's I'm happy in mine. So I appreciate how lucky I am. And there was this pyramid. They said a long time ago that people with a degree, a university degree in England, are like the top 2%. And I'm working to spread, as I say, to live in Happy Land, to invite other people freely into Happy Land.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed my interviewing skills too, as much as I have enjoyed your speaking skills and your conversation.
I do, and your English is very good.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Thank you so much, and I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Have a
Thank you.
great
Thank you.
evening.
Have a great time. Bye bye.
Bye bye. So, my audience, that was Nigel, Mr. Happy Vienna, and I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I did, because I did very much. I'll see you next time with next guest. Keep enjoying your life and be happy as Nigel is, as I am, and enjoy this life. Take care. Bye bye.